North Dakota was a state founded by farmers. When the Northern Pacific Railway was built through, they advertised how farmers could meet their destiny by taking one of their trains out to North Dakota to start their new lives. Many North Dakotans at the time were Scandinavian and German immigrants, coming from countries where the Northern Pacific Railway even set up colonization offices where the railroad would educate and set up Europeans with plans to populate the fertile lands of the upper Midwest. To attract more German immigrants, the Northern Pacific Railway renamed North Dakota's capital to Bismarck after Otto von Bismarck, the Chancellor of the German Empire. Bismarck was famous for being the first to unite Germany since the Holy Roman Empire had been crushed by Napoleon some 60 years earlier. The railroad would ship in immigrants to farm first, and then it would ship the immigrants' cash crops back. A great system, but it wasn't going to last. Arrangements ended up becoming exploitative. The powerful and wealthy forces of industry came to take advantage of the North Dakotans of the turn of the century. The farmers and laborers here were constantly being priced out by middlemen. Powerful bankers, grain traders, the Minneapolis Chamber of Commerce, and others were all using their connections to benefit off the crops shipped out of the state. Very little wealth would come back to North Dakota. Minnesota was treating North Dakota like a tributary colony. Northern Pacific would dominate this system because back then it was the main source of transportation of goods. If you turned on the railroad, they would deny you rail cars and leave your crops to rot unsold. Well, okay, I'm on my way to the Peace Garden, and it looks like it's going to be nothing but rain today. I don't like riding too fast. I'm going to see how much of North Dakota I can cross today. Hopefully I can get out and into Minnesota a little bit, but things are going to get wet. Yeah, wish me luck, but I still want to see the Peace Garden. I don't know how much it's going to rain today, but I guarantee it's going to be a little unpleasant. Probably have to bring out the rain gear. Damn it. Nobody likes rain on a motorcycle. Nobody. If you know somebody that does, they need help. After decades of bowing down to out-of-state industry, word was spreading across the state of North Dakota. A new revolution of political activism began to sweep across the state thanks to one man. In 1914, a farmer from Minnesota by the name of Arthur C. Townley had moved to North Dakota and took a Model T Ford around the countryside, much like the one I'm riding across now, and organized farmers and laborers across the state. Back then, farmers had little control over the railroads, the weather, or the middlemen, but Townley spread the message that the North Dakotan government could be used as a statewide co-op to protect its citizens from out-of-state interests looking to exploit them. He began the Non-Partisan League. His political strategy of rounding up locals to organize was so effective it's still being taught a century later in Ivy League political science courses. Townley's strategy would be to go into a town and meet a community leader that he believed would be receptive to his politics. He would drive around from farm to farm with this local leader spreading his message. Farmers back then were frequently visited by door-to-door salesmen in that era, so any car driving up to a homestead was often not met with a friendly face. Seeing a neighbor and a well-known community leader driving along with the visitor, however, meant something different. Townley would offer membership in the Non-Partisan League for $6 per year. More recruiters would go around from town to town selling their message. The NPL would back candidates from both major political parties. They would have candidates run in both primaries and would run NPL ideas on platforms. The Republican Party dominated the northern half of the U.S. in the generation or two following the Civil War. You can tell that for decades of electoral maps, the solid South stayed Democratic because Abraham Lincoln was the party that freed the slaves. Many were still alive and voting in the South that had participated in the Civil War, and the Republican Party was not popular. The Republican Party, as true now as it was then, was the party of big business. For the small-time farmers of North Dakota of this era, the Democratic Party didn't hold their values, and the Republican Party was too powerful. The NPL would endorse candidates that were running for positions regardless of party, but it'd normally only be Republican. You'd have Republicans running against NPL-backed Republicans for positions. In 1916, the NPL's statewide strategy reaped its biggest success, and Lynn Frazier from the NPL became the governor of North Dakota. He ran as a Republican in the primary and won 79% of the vote. 2 years later, the NPL in 1918 took 70% of the seats in the House, the majority in the Senate, and 4 out of 5 Supreme Court seats. In less than 5 years, the left-wing populist economic and political movement had spread like a prairie fire across the state. NPL reforms would come to pass in North Dakota that were some of the most progressive the U.S. had seen to date and have yet to see since.